UConn is done with their path of destruction, with their what was the term from yesterday's eclipse, guys?
Path of totality.
Path of totality. Path of totality. And the path of totality included Purdue last night. I'll give. Can you indulge me real quick? Before I get to why I think the world of Danny Hurley, and I'm sure he annoys the crap out of half of you, maybe even most of you. Let me get to let me basketball geek out for a second. The reason UConn is back-to-back national champions, okay, is because they have 3 things, maybe 4 things, that no one else has in combination. Right? There are teams that have great culture. I think Purdue has great culture. But they have really good culture. What does culture mean? Culture is you look at their bench and everybody is engaged. You look at how they play and everybody is intense. They bring a level of intensity and engagement to every game that they play. There's a connectivity to how they play. It's like a symphony. You're like, how do they do? If you look on social media, you can Google, you can search. UConn has this ridiculously long playbook. Huge playbook. Now, there's some tricks to it, right? And when you read it, if you don't know basketball talk, you're like, well, what is that? And, there's horn, stagger, dribble away. Okay, well, you get into the horns. Horns is the set. You dribble away. That signifies when you go to the stagger. You just call horn stagger, and then the dribble signifies the play. But whatever. It's a huge playbook. But when you see them doing it, it's like, man, how are they all planning to do all these things? You can't play basketball that way unless everybody knows what they're doing and where they're supposed to be. The reason I love the sport is the same reason I love football. Because you have one ball, but it only works if everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing on that specific play, and then do it again, and then do it again. And the reason I like it a little bit more than football, there's fewer guys or fewer chess pieces, but there's a continuity to it, back and forth. You can't stop, call a play, stop, call, like you can in football. Right? It's harder to communicate. It's like a symphony. And you only get there if everybody is engaged and communicating and has one agenda, and that agenda is winning, and they're competing. But you have to do that in practice every day. You can't just go like, hey, guys, let's mess around all week, but Saturday or Monday, we're going to do it right. No. I love that. So they have the culture. They have talent. And it's a sport where the talent has been depleted. Now, I do think it's going to be refreshed because the G League Ignite has gone away, and I would guess that Overtime Elite will go away as well, and there'll be more guys going to and staying in college, and there'll be more talent. I think that's a good thing. But they have at least 3, and I think 4, maybe 5 NBA players in their starting lineup. And Purdue has maybe 1. And then they had a great game plan, and they have the ability to adjust in their game plan. Right? Their game plan was, Zach Edey, go ahead. We got a big guy. You score. Okay, fine. You are not going to get 3-pointers, and you're not going to get offensive rebounds. And then you had the execution of it. You can say all of these things, but then you got to go do it. Meanwhile, Matt Painter, who is a great coach in the culture, in the toughness, and in the engagement, right? And they're fundamentally sound, and they accept their roles, but they don't have the talent. And there was a lack of adjustments to how they were playing. And by that, I mean, when they threw the ball inside to Zach Edey, they just stood there. But that's how they've played all year. And they have one guy who cuts. There's something called a split cut. Okay, I'm going to teach you. Sorry, Jay Stu and Muncie and Sam. I'm going to teach you, see if I can verbally teach you a little basketball. A split cut is, and the Golden State Warriors do this as well as anybody. Right? They pass it to Draymond Green in the post. He's not actually, in the old school days or with Zach Edey, that guy wants to score. But in new basketball, that's not what it's designed for. It's actually to get the defense to turn their heads and look. Meanwhile, you start moving and cutting, and it flattens out the defense. So a split cut is, I pass to the post, say I'm on the wing, you're in the low post. Whoever's at the top of the key, I go screen for them. And they read their defender. Right? And the screener reads it. So if his man switches, the screener cuts to the basket. If the defender who is guarding the guy at the top chases, you can curl, and that same screener pops. There's all these different reads and cuts. Okay? That's not how Purdue plays. And when you're at an athletic disadvantage, like they were last night, they had no one outside of Braden Smith who could ever dribble and get into the middle of the defense, which creates help, which creates open three-point shots. They just stood there, and a team that's one of the elite three-point shooting teams in the country, I think they're third in the country in three-point percentage, they only took 7 of them, made 1, had 3 of them blocked. Is some of that talent? Yes. Is some of that the talent on the defense and the size of the defenders? Right? Sure. But a lot of that is the inability to adjust to how the team is playing and change your style. And you can't change it in game 40. You could try, but it's really hard. UConn's back-to-back national champions, and it's not just because they have great players and because they have great fan support and they got great history. They're expertly coached. They have great game plans. They're dynamic at both ends. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you can coach all that stuff unless the players are engaged and execute. You can say we want to take away three-point shots and offensive rebounds, but it takes a special group of young men to actually do it. And they did. And now they're 2-time defending national champions. And, you know, I've known Danny a long time. Obviously, his dad, my dad was a high school coach, actually started in Jersey. My dad started as a high school coach in Jersey at Fairlawn High School. Do you know who the coach was before him at Fairlawn High School? Hubie Brown. It's a true story. Anyway, so, you know, when you're a coach's son, and his brother was my idol growing up, but there are certain people that fit certain jobs, right? And one of the reasons I love my job is because everybody who I've ever grown up with or played with, they'd be like, look, dude, you're basically, I'm basically on earth, and I serve 2 purposes. One, I can coach and motivate people, especially in basketball, but I can do that. And 2, I can talk about sports and have a strong opinion. That's it. And for Danny Hurley, like, look, Danny was always in the shadow of his brother. When you're a coach, you're always in the shadow of your dad. He's a guy who his chili runs hot. And the truth is, he's actually not, like, he doesn't berate his players. His negative energy comes out towards the officials, you know, and all of those facial expressions, all those, but they're not towards his players. That's why it works. Does he coach his players hard? Sure. But he's not berating them on the sideline the way older coaches maybe were. So it's a new way of coaching them hard. Does he coach them hard? Sure. But he said something this past week that I thought was amazing. And he's just like, look, I can be a bit of an a-hole, but it works here. Like, UConn fans, Big East fans, like, they're lunatics. They really think that because UConn's dominated the last 2 NCAA tournaments, that somehow St. John's should have played in the NCAA tournament. That doesn't make any sense. None. Zero. Nada. You know? There is no true correlation there. They're insane. They're intense. And if you say something about their own conference, they will fight you. But it all works. And so, like, the Kentucky job's open. And he could probably go 1.5 to 2x of what he's making at UConn. He's making like $5 million, and they'll probably pay him $10 million. And think about it, like you sit there and you were, 15 years ago, you were a high school assistant coach. 10 years ago, you're the head coach at Wagner, then at Rhode Island. And hey, man, you could make $70 million over 7 years, $80 million over 8 or 9 years. And that's, by the way, the starting point. If you win, you could make $100 million in 10 years, $100 million, life-changing money. Now, you're already making close to life-changing money anyway. But, man, there are who you work for, who you work with, and where you fit. And Danny Hurley, who played in the Big East, who grew up in Jersey City, who's the other brother to the greatest college point guard in my generation, right? Because it's UConn, and UConn wasn't royalty for a long time, even in the old Big East. That was Georgetown. That was Syracuse. It was only after Georgetown fell that UConn kind of picked up the mantle. It's only after St. John's fell that UConn lifted up. And then when UConn left the league, that's when Villanova rose up. But man, don't leave some. If you can make it work financially, and I think for $5-6 million we can all make it work. You go somewhere you fit. Don't ever leave that place. Because I can tell you, there have been places where I fit. I mean, like, look, Notre Dame, I didn't fit. Square peg, round hole. Oklahoma State, I did. And when I was at ESPN, I fit. Now, ESPN's kind of changed and evolved. Maybe I don't now. CBS didn't feel like it fit. Different style. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with Notre Dame. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with CBS. Just, that's not me. You don't look at it and say, that makes sense. Fit is so much of, it's kind of everything. And Danny Hurley fits UConn. And he's running the best program in the country. And because he has the best coaching, combined with the best culture, and better players than the opponent, they now have not one, but 2 consecutive national titles and six overall. Incredible.